In this video, we're going to be talking about the top 5 mistakes Elden Ring players make. Number 5. Going into boss fights without a strategy. This is a massive one. Boss fights are basically endurance battles, meaning they last a while. So therefore you need a plan in place to deal with that. Whether that involves using guards, buffs, poisons, bleed damage, magic. As long as you have something in place, it will give you a better chance of winning the fight. More importantly, bosses normally have 9 to 10 different moves. So, unless you have something in place to deal with those moves, you're going to be in trouble. Bosses do large amounts of damage, they have long combos, and they have different sequence of skills, which they can switch around, throwing you off. If you go into battle without a plan, prepare to get destroyed. Number 4. Not knowing your strengths and weaknesses. This is another big one. Bosses will expose what you're good at and what you're not good at. So, if you think you're good at parrying, and you're not, and you use that in a battle, you're going to get destroyed. So, what you shouldn't do is use parrying. What you should do instead is use a skill that you're actually good at. So, if you're good at dodging, you should use that skill as much as possible because that will give you a better chance of winning the fight. And maybe also you're good at magic. So if you try to combine these two skills together, that will give you a huge chance of being able to beat the boss. And really, going into a fight, you should know your strengths and weaknesses. Because if you don't, you're going to be in massive trouble when you come up against a tough boss. Number 3. Relying on summons. This one is big, mainly because I believe that using summons in Elden Ring is a mistake. Not because summons trivialize these fights, which they do, but because when you get into later stages of the game, these summons become completely useless. And if you've been using summons all the way through the game, you haven't really been building skills to be able to deal with later game challenges or bosses. And I think that was a mistake from Software to really make this a core feature of this game, because I think a lot of players aren't putting the time to be able to build skills so that they can progress through this game and put them in a position to beat end game bosses. That's my theory on this. People might disagree, but what I think you should do is not use summons at all during this game. Because if you do that, you'll be forced to work on your skills, and therefore you'll become a better player, being able to take on these end game challenges, which you will need all your skill to be able to take down. Once again, I think summons are a bad idea because these end game bosses don't really get affected by summons. Number 2, not focusing on a build. This is a mistake I've made many times in the past, where I've gone out and distributed all my points evenly. So you'll have 20 points on vigor, 20 points on strength, and 20 points on faith, which is a massive mistake and something that a lot of new players make. Because what you should be doing is you should be focusing your points on very specific skills. So if you're doing a faith build, for example, you should be putting most of your points in faith, some of it in vigor, and then maybe some of it in a third skill. But you shouldn't be distributing all your points evenly across all your skills, because that will put you in massive trouble come endgame, because you won't be able to take on these endgame bosses. What happens is, if you do this, you're basically diluting your character. So your character will become a weak piece of shit come the end of the game. It's a mistake that a lot of players make, especially new players, because they don't understand that the game is not designed for you to spread your skills evenly across the board. So focus on 1, 2, maybe 3 skills and build those so that your character is actually getting stronger as the game progresses. Number 1, not building skills. Normally, I wouldn't talk about this. In Dark Souls 3, for example, you can get away with dodging and attacking at the right time, but with Elden Ring, this doesn't seem to be enough. These bosses have really small windows to attack in, so you're going to need additional skills to be able to take them on. So, if you're good at dodging, that's good. And if you're good at using magic, for example, that's good as well. But I think to be able to take on these really tough bosses, you're probably going to need 3 to 4 skills to be able to deal with them, because, as I said, these windows to attack them are really small. So you're going to need additional skills or avenues of attack to be able to take them down. Really, this game is probably the hardest Souls game, because these bosses have more variations of skills, and these bosses seem to be a lot faster than previous bosses in previous series. I'm not sure if that's really the case. This game is still new, so maybe I'm, over exaggerating, but I do think that it is a mistake not to spend time to build skills, because I mentioned this a lot, but when you start getting towards later stages of the game really makes you pay for it. And that's about it.